Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Today we're taking a look at Gaming News Consolidated. This is November 24th through the 30th, and man, this is another packed week. We kind of had the holidays and stuff, and it was kind of quiet for a couple of days, and man, just a bunch of information ended up coming out. So we got stuff on Black Myth Wukong, Final Fantasy 14, we got some stuff about Microsoft and Sony, we got some stuff on Unknown 9 Awakening, another completely failing game, which is just way worse than I ever thought. Stuff on Baldur's Gate 3, a couple of layoffs and closures, which are surprising. We're going to talk about Black Friday. I was planning to do an actual video on Black Friday, but I'm going to go into basically why I didn't, and I felt like it was really going to be a waste of your guys' time, so I didn't want to do that. And more. I mean, there is a bunch. Payday 3, and at the very end, we're going to talk about the games that are coming in December. So, thanks for tuning in. You can always like, sub, all that jazz. And two, if you enjoy the content, go ahead and share. And again, this is going to be a big one. This is probably at least going to be another hour, but hey, let's go ahead and get started. So, the Black Myth developer is teasing something toward the end of the year. We understand that they do understand that most people have finished it. But they still want to have something for the player base that are on PC and PlayStation. We aren't sure exactly what it is. They just say there's something coming or something they're going to announce toward the end of the year. We also don't know if really this is going to be maybe at the Game Awards. We kind of assume it is because there's not really much else going on unless they just want to make their own little public announcement on YouTube or Twitter X or something. But yeah, we'll have to see. I'm actually kind of expecting a lot of the Game Awards to really kind of show some stuff that maybe we're not exactly expecting. But then again, yeah, we'll have to see. I'm going to watch it for you guys, so you don't have to. Most of the time, it will be a waste of time. So, yeah, we'll see. I kind of think it's going to be DLC. I don't really know what else they could do. Maybe they're also thinking of like a Black Myth, another type of story worked in with that Chinese lore. I'm not entirely sure what else it could be. What do you guys think it is? Honestly, they didn't really give very much. That was basically it, just some kind of a teaser thing that they're going to share toward the end of the year. Final Fantasy 14, it's now actually going mobile. So this was basically for PC and for console, and now and that was earlier this year. And this is a like big MMO basically. Think of like World of Warcraft or think of EVE Online or something. This is just going to, with the Final Fantasy 14 skin over it. And yeah, this is, it is a pretty big game, but you already got to have a third-party login on top of what you already have to log into for your console and whatever. So I didn't bother necessarily, and I don't have any friends that really play those anyway, but it is actually going to be going mobile now. And so the idea is to basically get it on every single platform. And I feel like this is kind of like the general consensus now with a lot of developers and publishers, and that, whether it's a MMO, RPG, single player, or multiplayer game, they really want to get the game out on as many platforms as they can, which makes sense, right? Because if you're really wanting to actually make money, you need to get the game out there. You need to be able to provide as much opportunity as possible. And generally speaking, as the data shows, the more opportunity, the more bites you actually get. And so, yeah, this makes sense for putting it on mobile. This reminds me, too, of Genshin Impact. This was first a mobile game, and you could play on your phone or your tablet, etc. But now you can actually, play it on console. We actually got that this year. And so, yeah, we'll have another one. Square Enix is also probably kind of looking for a hit, anything that he can. It's been pretty financially rough for them. It's been frustrating. They haven't really had any nominations for Game of the Year. They haven't had any big bangers that have been huge. Final Fantasy's an IP they've been working for a long time, along with several others. But again, none of them have really kind of like taken off. And it kind of makes me remind me too of like EA or like Ubisoft, where again the majority of what they make doesn't really kick off huge. It's just kind of mid a lot of times. And yeah, they're just wanting to get as much out as they can. So yeah, Final Fantasy 14 is going to be going to mobile. And two, like I'm sure this will also eventually be able to go to your handhelds as well. I'm sure at some point, and we got more news on that too. Boy, that there's quite a bit of news coming out this week about that. But yeah, we'll get to that later in the show. So technically, someone has beaten Minecraft in mobile sales. So Minecraft has been out for 6 years as a mobile game, and it's always been at the top of the chart. Well, someone was actually able to beat it this time for this week, and that was Balatro. It was able, with fully paid sales, it was able to surpass Minecraft, which no one else has been able to do for 6 years every week, which is incredible. And yeah, Balatro is huge. It actually got nominated for Game of the Year. It's been blowing up ever since. And this is for the Game Awards, and so we'll be seeing more about it. Maybe it'll actually win Game of the Year. It could. But yeah, the revenue sales, got about $4.3 million just from mobile release alone. So when we start thinking about, okay, the last gen and current gen consoles for Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox, plus I believe too it's also on PC. It's basically on every single platform and possible on every device now. And yeah, they have made probably tens of millions of dollars by now. In a pretty short amount of time. They released, I believe, in March or May of this year, and yeah, it's just blowing up now that it's been nominated for Game of the Year, which is huge. And honestly, that's kind of why we have these shows, why we have these nominations. It's really to try to share and to bring attention to games that maybe actually deserve it. It is also all sold on Steam and I think the Epic Game Store as well. So again, you can literally find this anywhere. Later, it is expected to be free to play. There will be a update for this sometime in 2025. And so this is actually from the publisher's developers' lips. They're planning to make it actually free to play. Right now, it's a certain period of time or a certain cost. I don't remember how much it is. Maybe it's $20, maybe it's $30. Somewhere in there. I can't imagine it really being more than that because it's definitely an indie game. But yeah, eventually a free-to-play model. And yeah, that's going to be huge because it's got some addictive mechanics that we're actually going to be talking about. So some of us may not even really know what it is. And you could think of it as like reimagined poker with deck building versus enemy blinds. Just to basically see who wins the round. And, depending... Yeah, it's kind of a new way to play poker in a way, and it's certainly colorful and exciting, and there's different rules and stuff, and definitely very addicting too. That's why I think it's definitely blowing up, and people are just praising it that have played it. All of them kind of sound crazy in a way. I personally haven't played it myself. I have an addictive personality, and so I can get addicted to things actually fairly easy. So no, I don't plan to actually play this. Because yeah, I don't want it to suck me in. But yeah, this too is why live service actually makes so much revenue. Is because of these addictive mechanics. Is because there's always something to go for, or grind for, or quickly, and it's very quick succession. With these kind of mechanics too, and so yeah, it's not necessarily unsurprising that Balatro is liked by a ton of people. I mean, that's the whole point of a lot of these types of mechanics in video games, or in just games before video games in general, just like poker, is that it is fun to win. It's in that is addicting. There's, chemistry that happens in your brain to get you to keep playing. But I do actually have a pretty big issue about this because the ESRB here in America has rated it for plus 10. Basically, kids that can be in 5th grade can play this game. And that is pretty insane. In my opinion, kids should absolutely not be playing this game. I have 2 children of my own. And yeah, there's no way they should be playing something that is so close to an actual addictive game that can be financially ruinsome to a lot of people, and is actually to a lot of people. And yeah, there's no way that this should actually be available to children or even teenagers, in my opinion. Um, they shouldn't be able to have access. PEGI has actually changed their rating over in Europe, and now it's 18 plus. And the console stores have currently adjusted or updated on basically who can actually buy this. So you got to go through a few more steps, but really, regardless of what age you are, you can just go ahead and buy this if you wish. But I hope the ESRB actually does this too, because again, there's no way we should have a game that's so inviting, so fun, so easily and cheaply accessible with gambling mechanics. We shouldn't be having that geared toward children. This has been an issue too with Roblox. This has been an issue too with even just how addictive some of the grinding mechanics can be in other live service games, or why even Grand Theft Auto Online has a casino in there. And again, it's the same type of principle. And while I don't think the intentionality is there, again, we should be not necessarily allowing kids easy access anyway. Kids get into whatever they want regardless. But yeah, it shouldn't be rated 10 for a reimagined poker game. That is kind of insane. We'll have to see if they actually win the Game Awards. I think they might be in the a close running because it is a smaller game. It's a smaller studio, and they're already making a ton of money. So I'm sure they're already profitable at this point. But I guarantee, though, that it wouldn't have beaten Minecraft Mobile if it had the appropriate rating on it. So, in my opinion, Minecraft still isn't beat because this game is misappropriately rated. And anything that is geared toward children definitely blows up. I mean, look at Roblox or Fortnite. Those games are huge. I would even say Apex Legends as well. Those games are huge, and they're definitely geared toward children. And they're on basically, again, every single type of platform. And just like this game. So, yeah, it kind of makes sense why it's been blowing up and why it's been heralded. And I'm sure it's designed well. I'm sure it runs great. Everyone's been praising the game. Again, that's not my issue. If people want to play a game like that, that's totally okay. Or any other type of game. Again, games are a type of art and expression. But certain aspects of art should not be just allowed for anyone to view them, especially minors, especially very young and impressionable minors that are still technically could be in elementary school, which just sounds crazy. So we'll see if it wins. Sony has confirmed that they're actually making a console handheld. Now, this is separate from the PS Portal update that they already did. If you didn't hear about that, PlayStation has now updated the PlayStation Portal so that it can actually operate independently from the console itself and stream games to your device, which is crazy. It's not like the entire library of PlayStation stuff. It's not absolutely everything, but there is a library already that you can have access to. And this is kind of pretty reminiscent of what Xbox has already been doing with like Game Pass, or what they're trying to set up with streaming outside of Game Pass, just through the cloud with games that you've purchased through the Xbox store. So it's very interesting. And now Sony is confirming that they're working on a separate handheld to basically compete with Nintendo and Xbox. This will play just PlayStation 5 games, no PlayStation 4. We're probably not looking at like a backwards compatibility list or anything, just PlayStation 5 games. There's also no mention of PlayStation 6 or to be able to be usable for future generations. It's not that they couldn't, but they probably, of course, would have to patch that. And in 4 years, when we get the PlayStation 6 and the next Xbox, who actually knows exactly where everything's going to be in the handheld space, because we probably have the Switch 2 announcement next year in 2025. We also don't have any price. We don't have any specs. This is a very fresh announcement. But honestly, in my opinion, we better get it soon, because we're already over halfway through the current generation right now. And unless it can be an absolute standalone to just be able to play games as they're coming out through the store, like being able to play PlayStation 6, having a handheld maybe for a year or a couple of years would be kind of cool. But then it's also definitely got a shelf life for some of the consumer base, because as soon as the PlayStation 6 comes out, or the next Xbox or Nintendo Switch, well, they're going to be going toward that. And people only have, generally speaking, so much money, and so they have to pick and choose. And this definitely, too, this handheld is not likely to be cheap. We already see some handhelds today that can be upwards of like $700, and all the way down to like 400 or 500, depending on what type of models you get. And yeah, it's probably going to be spendy. And to be able to play PlayStation 5 games, it basically either needs the fairly native hardware to be able to run everything um, built into the handheld itself, or it honestly needs to be streamed, which then could definitely reduce the price. But then the streaming experience also would not be perfect. So, as it would be wireless, it would be dependent on what type of internet you have or where you are. So, that wouldn't necessarily be the best experience, of course. But they have made the PSP and the PS Vita in the past. And so they do have some experience there, and maybe hopefully they're revisiting some of that to actually kind of see what they can do there. But again, no PSP, no PS Vita. It's kind of a bummer they actually quit that, but again, it was probably just too early for its time. And but yeah, now we're kind of ready for that type of stuff. So we'll see what they do. Now, this is not supposed to necessarily be, I think, completely independent. This is more or less supposed to be kind of in sync with the PlayStation 5. This will be a separate device that can play games, but it will be built kind of off of the current generation. And again, just PlayStation 5 games. We know that Xbox currently has at least two prototypes that they're working on for their own handheld, though again, several years off. So I imagine PlayStation's and Xbox's handhelds will basically come out at the same time. And two, they better find a way to make some of their legacy games to play on this new handheld, because Sony has a ton of them, and they are expanding their list of what's able to be played on PlayStation Plus Premium, which is great. They just added Sly Cooper and Jack and Dexter, which is wonderful. And not too long ago, they also added Dino Crisis, which I think was a couple of weeks ago. But they need to continue to expand that, because there's still so many games that are not available, and they don't have to necessarily make remasters for all of them, or they don't even have the capacity to. I'll say it that way as well. But to be able to play a wider range of generations on PlayStation, to be able to play it on the handheld that they're making, would definitely be a lot more incentive to actually purchase it and to get people plugged into their network, to their ecosystem. So yeah, we'll actually see what happens with that. I'm I'm pretty curious, because everything that Xbox is basically doing, everything that Xbox is announcing, Sony is right after them, following suit within a month or a few months, or a year. So yeah, that is kind of crazy. Now let's get into something that is, I don't necessarily want to make a state of gaming out of this. I guess I technically could, but half of the content isn't really that interesting. Um, so I just decided to couple it with the gaming news. And this is Unknown 9 Awakening. This is a video game that came out last month. It's basically been out for 5 weeks now. And yeah, it's doing horrible, of course. Maybe almost 6 by now. And it's losing a lot more than we originally thought it did. Again, this is a game that nobody is playing. This is also a game that did worse than Concord, at least according to Steam numbers. And no one knows about it. It's really kind of just tucked under the radar. I think I've seen it a little bit in advertisements, like on my laptops or my computer or whatever. But again, it's not huge by any means. It's also a smaller game, a double A. It's got a fairly big budget. The game was $50 for its MSRP, so it is kind of a smaller game. But yeah, this game just didn't go anywhere. Marketing wasn't good, but it is also following a concerning trend that I also want to talk about, which is why this is really in the news. Unknown 9 Awakening, I've seen it on some thumbnails and stuff, but I didn't really care. But the type of trend that they're following and what's happening with it, I think, is important to talk about. So let's go ahead and get into this. So Awakening came out in October 18, 2024 for $50. Currently, it's 30% off on Steam. The platforms were PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. The Steam Charts DB shows that 33% of the peak launch players. Let's see. Excuse me. Um, Steam Charts DB shows that the review score is 33%. Yeah, that's horrible. And still, I think that's worse than Concord. And then the peak launch of the game is 285 people playing the game. Currently, as of writing this out, 39 players were playing. So again, it's just already a dead game within its first month. It also never showed up on PlayStation Time Tracker during the last 30 days or during even the last 7 days. As I've checked for other games and stuff, I've never noticed it on the list. Yeah, it's just shocking. We learned, too, that Sweet Baby Inc. was a consultant, and that probably didn't help the numbers either. There's definitely a crowd out there that as soon as Sweet Baby is mentioned, they just, nope, they're completely stay away from it. And I got to say, too, generally speaking, there is definitely a trend that whatever Sweet Baby is consulting on, it's a disappointment for a lot of people, including myself. I don't necessarily care if Sweet Baby is a consultant or not, but I am tired of the type of generic, the minority pushing that some of these games are seeming to have, and forcing you to play a certain way, too. Just like Veilguard or just like Dustborn or some of these other games, it's just like, man, this is getting kind of ridiculous. Or even like Unknown 9 Awakening, again, it's just very kind of generic feeling game. Star Wars Outlaws was kind of like that, too. You know, once you get hours in, then it picks up. It's like, frick, I don't want to play 10 hours just to try to actually get to the game. That is just, yeah, that sucks. The writing was bad. I mean, yeah, they have a lot of these kind of hallmark characteristics, whatever Sweet Baby Inc. touches. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they take the consultant's advice, but they probably do to some extent because they already paid for it, so they might as well use at least some of it, right? And they're a type of consultant for basically character creation and narrative for the actual story and the plot and everything for the game. So Sweet Baby wouldn't necessarily be consulted for like Fortnite or some other maybe MMO or like some kind of a puzzle game because there isn't really a narrative there, right? More for like story-based games, single player. And but yeah, that definitely probably didn't help their numbers because yeah, again, some people would just rather stay away from it. On top of all of this, while they're definitely losing money on the game with currently 39 players, there's also more that they've been developing for this, even launching all the way back in August, which is crazy. They have comics, novels, a podcast, and even a web series. And the only one that you actually pay for that costs money to the consumer is the books. The other three are free. Not to them. They actually got to spend money to produce this stuff. And it definitely costs money. But yeah, this is kind of shocking. It's like you don't actually have to pay for any of this. So I took time to kind of look it up. So you guys don't have to. Oh my word. It's bad. So let's get into the comics. So far, there are 6 issues. Looking at a summary of basically all of them, they're fairly generic. Looking at the summary of number 6, there's likely more that are planned, but I don't know if they're going to come out. There's also nothing indicating on the website, Unknown 9 Awakening's website, to actually see if there's more planned or when these are actually releasing to get some kind of an interval or even when these started to come out. But yeah, the comics are basically called Torment. And again, it kind of plays into some aspect of the lore of the universe that this entire thing is built in. And they want to make you log into the website to actually read it for free. Get your email address, all that stuff. So we know what that's for. The art design overall is pretty good. These comics are 28 pages each, and they're digital only. There's no physical copies whatsoever. Taking a look at the web series, as the comics were already bad enough, the web series was way worse. This is 7 episodes, roughly 15 to 17 minutes each. The acting, the writing, the camera angles, the sets. Of course, like it is a web series, so you wouldn't expect it to be amazing or great or anything, but you would at least expect it to be fairly good or even interesting. To me personally, it's not. It is just anything but any of those things. And it's all pretty bad. I mean, the camera angles are bad, or they're just having one camera or a couple of cameras. The acting is horrific. Um, the pausing between lines sometimes is awkward. How the actors are engaging with each other, just there's no chemistry. Almost even at one of the episodes, I think it was episode 3, seemed like one of the characters was almost like forgetting his lines. So he was just kind of awkwardly pausing through his lines that he had to be saying. And gal, I mean, this is bad. Also, the plot and story are not really well presented. You're kind of learning along through things, but they have these weird narratives almost in every single episode where you're hearing like what somebody wrote. And you're seeing, you're constantly getting some of these pieces and pages, but you still don't really know what's going on. You don't even really get off of the ship that this is taking place on in 1914, or even why anybody's really there or kind of where they're going. I will at least be fair to this, is that I was at work, I was working and listening to this, I was watching some of it, but man, this was bad. This was hard to track. I even had a couple of episodes that I watched over and still couldn't even really track what was going on. I can tell that there's a universe, that there is something interesting there, that there is this kind of like secret society that's going on, and I don't necessarily want to spoil anything just for fun, but taking a look at the comics, taking a look at the game, taking a look at the web series, all of this stuff, like it's kind of eluding and procuring up to all of this stuff. The web series actually started being pushed toward the end. I think it was in October, just before the release date or right around the release date. And this is actually on YouTube. You can just go look this up, and hey, if you want to watch the 7 episodes yourself, knock yourself out, baby, because it's definitely going to be putting you to sleep. It's pretty awful. So yeah, all of this is definitely low budget. There's nobody known making this. The writers, the director, the producer, the actors, like nobody's special here, right? No one we recognize. But something that's bad, that's just, rotting frosting right on the cake, is just that the episodes weren't even uploaded in order on YouTube, which is kind of insane. I think episode 2 was actually the last one to be uploaded, and why they didn't upload them in sequence or stagger them a little better, I have no idea. Again, it doesn't make any sense. It's like they're just, okay, hurry up, get it out there, whatever, I don't care. Just get it over with so we can say we did it. The next thing I looked at was actually the podcast. This currently has 2 seasons. They're still uploading this, actually, by this week. Their last thing they uploaded was 2 episodes on Wednesday, literally just before Thanksgiving on Thursday. There's a fair sound effects and Foley sounds and stuff. They do a fairly good job of actually rendering the environment and kind of giving you a feeling of what it's like or what the atmosphere is like with where they're at or what's currently happening. The acting is okay. Sometimes the voice acting, especially in the first couple of episodes, are pretty bad. But it's like, they're kind of starting to get used to this. These are generally 25 minutes, 30 minutes. Until we get to episode 4, which is 50 minutes. And I didn't finish that one. The whole thing with this podcast is that you're basically following a weird paranormal investigative pair, 2 people that like each other, we guess. We don't entirely exactly understand. Quote, one of the characters uses the word partner, but again, don't know if that's partner in crime or actually like a romantic relationship or whatever. None of that's really clear. And they experience some of these weird anomalies, which again is supposed to be part of the lore of this unknown 9 universe, but they don't actually fix anything, which is kind of weird. So again, like, what's the point? There's also someone that's guiding them to these places. We don't know who that person is or why. And yeah, there's this really weird spoiler too about one of the main characters. So, and then the other supporting characters we do see, like, we'll never see them again. This couple is like traveling all over the country in the United States. just checking out these places, getting some interesting things, having some unique experiences, and, moving on to the next one, I guess. There's not really a point to this. It's yeah, it's just weird. I mean, I basically spent 4.5 hours listening to these, and it's just I don't understand what the purpose is, what the point is. We don't really get that far. Um, and again, if I got to wait 4.5 hours in a podcast to kind of figure out what's going on, or for it to just capture me, it's just like, man, this is just not working. The first season, I think, has like 12 episodes or something like that. And again, this is on Spotify or anywhere else where you can get podcasts. You can look it up. Again, just type in Unknown 9 Awakening, and it'll pull up. But yeah, it's bad. It's not great either. Excuse me. All right, let's talk about the books. We have 3 books in a trilogy, of course, and the third one is missing. I'm not even kidding. The first one was published in 2020. The second was published in 21. And the third book was to release on the release date of the game on October 18th of this year. But again, that didn't happen. There were no updates found. There's no notations. There's no future release date. Excuse me, folks. It's just kind of weird. Again, there's just no third book. There's also 400 plus pages in each book that was written. Like, these books are huge. And they're available on Amazon if you actually want to take a look at these. You can buy them in paperback, and they are also digital if you want to have them as an audiobook. But yeah, something that's really surprising to me is that, this is a massive production. There's a lot of moving parts here, including the game, which we're not going to get into because I don't want to play it, and I don't know too much about it. Just some screenshots and some some gameplay. But these books are huge. They're over 400 pages each, and the third one is just out there in limbo. We really have no idea what's going on. And again, there's no update to anything. You can actually buy these books if you want. You can read them if you want. But it's kind of weird because while the overall idea, I think is interesting, I just don't think it's executed very well through this whole multimedia thing. It's really poor because regardless of the comics, the web series, the podcasts, or kind of leafing through some previews of the books and looking at the game, I still don't know what's going on. The entire web series, I watched them all. The comics, well, I just, read the summaries that were available because I didn't want to log in. The podcasts, I listened to 4.5 hours. And the books, I kind of skimmed some of that. But again, it's like I'm lost. Again, I don't entirely know what's going on. There's some characters that are repeated. There are some factions that are repeated in some of the main plots of like the universe lore. But again, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Even with consuming all of this media, I basically still have to consume everything that I can to get the full picture of what's going on with the characters and the lore and the story. It all pretty much feels too low budget. No way that this was all cheap to make, though. We're talking about publishing 2 books, where we were working on a third one, which that probably costs money to some extent. You got to pay people to write it, to edit it, draft it, publish it. I mean, it costs money. So that's gone. The podcasts that are actually still running that's costing money to make, as there's different characters and editors and all of that as well. The web series costs money to make. I mean, they had a small ship of some sort to use, or at least some pretty convincing set overall. And then we have the comics as well. So it's not like this stuff is being done for free. Even all of this outside of the game. And it's just crazy. It just feels like a complete waste of money. And the IP is dead in less than a month. Nobody wants this. It doesn't make sense what's happening. The game even sold with an AMD bundle for free on PC. And nobody's playing it. Reflections, the studio that is making the game and is also connected with all of this other stuff, basically the IP itself, they're laying off 18%. The publisher is Bandai Namco, and they're definitely losing money on this project. I mean, even after this, most people probably won't even remember in a couple of months, because we're going to be getting ready for Avowed and playing through Indiana Jones and Dynasty Warrior Origins, Warside. I'm excited for that one. Oh, well, yeah, we also have Monster Hunter in February. So it's like, this is just going to be completely forgotten. It's just insane. An 18% layoff? Man, that's a ton. And what are they going to do after this? I don't know. They don't have a plan. They're certainly not really supporting their game anymore. They don't even have the third book going. It's just missing in action. The podcast is still running. The web series is done. The comics seem done, even though they could continue to write 7, 8, and whatever. But if they will or not, I don't know. But it's just like, this is really bad. And this gets me to my main point of actually bringing this up. Sorry if that was kind of in depth, but I really want to lay this up really well, because this is a becoming trend of multimedia. Having an IP that can transcend gaming and TV show and whatever, they literally want to push out everything that they possibly can, every type of revenue source. And my biggest issue with the whole multimedia model is that it's all usually designed artificially without the consumer base. Like, they don't have input. They don't get to create something, see how consumers react to it, and then continue to build on it and make more in the years and decade to come, right? Like Star Wars, like Marvel, like DC, like Rick and Morty, like South Park, like The Simpsons, okay? Like Alien. All of these are really big IPs that have been around for a long time, that have made toys, made movies, made shows, been a part of games. I mean, they have done this multimedia model, but it's like what some of these people today don't seem to understand, because again, it's not just Unknown 9. There's others as well where it's just like they actually push everything out all at once. And again, even with all the stuff they did push out, I still don't know what's happening. I'd have to play the game, I guess. Or it's supposed to get me intrigued enough to actually play the game. But it's like, comics, web series, podcasts, and books are supposed to get me excited. They started with the books first. The podcast, web series, and comics were this year. I mean, what are they doing? They're just blowing money. And so, yeah, it's all just put out there all at once or close together. Also, the focus on the media itself, I don't prefer to consume it. I don't want a TV show. I don't want a movie. I don't want toys. I don't want comics, a web series, a podcast. Some of that can all work, of course, if it's done well. Look at Star Wars, for example. That's gone for a long time. Not lately has it done well, but, over relatively the average of the last 4 decades, basically. We're almost at 4 decades. Can you believe it, folks? No, actually, we're almost at 5 decades. Holy cow, that's crazy. But even still, it's like Star Wars has done a great job. I think of Halo as well. Games, a TV show that bombed, unfortunately, but there's books too. There's toys and stuff, and it sells. But it's like, it's made in pieces instead of, it's not just all shoved out there all at once. And it works because there's some nostalgia there. When it's all put out there at once, there's no way to have nostalgia. All I have with this, in this case, is just a whole bunch of confusion. And I think many feel generally the same way. I mean, there's a lot of different things out there that you can pay for. There's a lot of services you can pay for. But a lot of us actually enjoy the free stuff. The big ones are basically YouTube, Tubi, Pluto TV. They're cheap because they're free. They're the freest option. And we're not really getting a big quality boost when we actually pay for the other services like Paramount Plus or Disney Plus or Hulu or Netflix. We don't really get like a quality boost in content. Maybe a little bit. Maybe some are actually really good, right? Like the Mario movie or Cyberpunk Blade Runner, Edge Runner, excuse me, or the Fallout TV show or The Last of Us. Some of these are actually pretty good, and we're enjoying them. But generally speaking, it's not enough to warrant the cost, especially now with everything that we're dealing with and the inflation and everything. It's just, you got to save money, but you still want to be entertained. And so we're going for the free stuff. And so in order to get people to pay the money to build the lore and the universe, there's a way of going about it. And again, this is just a horrible example of what not to do. Because they have just totally destroyed their IP and it's not coming back. So, of course, there's licensing too. And it's done. Like, there's no way this is going anywhere. Again, they're just probably not even going to put out the third book or continue on with the comics. And eventually they're going to end the podcast. Because, again, what's the point? The podcast almost has as many followers as the people that actually played the game. There's 244 that follow it on Spotify. And there's 285 for peak player count on Steam. And it doesn't even show up on PS Time Tracker. It's just a totally wrong way of doing it. And me personally, while I like to read, I like comics, okay, I like podcasts and stuff, and I like listening to or watching stuff on YouTube, I like games more than all of those generally put together because it's more engaging. And I think a lot of us feel that way too. The game itself, even just like Stalker 2, if it's broken and buggy and whatever, it's still a completely immersive experience for those that like survival horror. It's a great one. That's what you've been seeing on the screen. But yeah, this was, a lot of money. And it just wasn't spent, on some of this stuff, but it was wasted. And man, that sucks. I'm really curious how much was blown on all different fives of these multimedia. And it kind of reminded me of Concord too. Like they had a series and like Sony was thinking this is going to be this big massive thing that they could continue to make money off of. This was going to be like a decade game. They'd be able to make some other branches maybe in other games. They'd be able to make some books. There is an episode in Secret Level that's coming, or maybe it's out already. They were probably looking at some merchandise too. Like this was going to be a multimedia IP. And good grief, the game lasted for 2 weeks before they completely shut it down because it was costing them money. But yeah, it's wasted because it's all about hope of making money instead of actually making the consumer happy. Again, some of these heads of these companies, they're not thinking about it this way. Many adaptions, too, they've been frustrating recently. Showrunners, they don't know the lore. They don't know what they're making. They don't know really anything. The trailers honestly show the best parts and leaving nothing for the viewer when they're actually watching it. Many of the writers and directors are new and are handed the IPs that they can't live up to. They can't live up to the reputation. They can't live up to the quality and the scale. God, I mean, we've seen some horrible examples. The reality is honestly shining through some as they're canceled or delayed. We had Splinter Cell was canceled. Horizon TV show was canceled. The Minecraft movie was delayed in reshoots for basically an entire year, which is insane. They also made Minecraft now an actual theater showing instead of just it being on Netflix like they thought. They're trying to get more money in. To get it into theater, and it'll probably be eventually on Netflix anyway. But like these are not cheap productions. There was money spent on these and just blown, unfortunately. And overall, like this kind of multimedia thing, it kind of feels like an experiment to me. It's kind of like, they just need to find or make lightning in a bottle. Like the Mario movie, like Five Nights at Freddy's, Cyberpunk Edge Runner, Fallout, The Last of Us. But these aren't lightning or magic. They're intentful creations that know their audience. And so they stick to the lore and they build to give their audience a good experience. And this is ultimately what we call a passion project. That's how I define it for myself, anyway. The lore's good, the story's good, the pacing is good. They're thinking about how to engage the viewer, the listener, the player, whatever they're building, right? And they care about the user experience. And it doesn't always work out perfectly, but like they're trying. Instead, with some of these multimedia projects we've seen so far this year, including Concord and Unknown 9, it's just like, good gravy, what are you people doing? You can clearly see it's just all about the money all the time. Some horrible ones that we've had is like the Tomb Raider animated series, Twisted Metal, the Halo TV show, the Borderlands movie, the Monster Hunter movie really wasn't great. There's a bunch of sand, basically, and like one monster, two monsters. That was kind of sucky. The Resident Evil movie, we don't even remember that one. But that happened a couple of years ago. But yeah, we don't even remember. I also don't believe the Minecraft movie's going to be good. I'm going to go see it in April. Joy. And then we also have a Hogwarts Legacy TV show. And I don't think that's going to be good either. For Minecraft, again, it had those reshoots, and it's gone from Netflix to theaters. The Hogwarts Legacy show, the writers didn't read all the books. He didn't really care. He basically read what he needed to his daughter, and then when she could read, he quit. So again, he's like the showrunner that's making Hogwarts Legacy TV show doesn't know the lore like he should, in my opinion, for making a TV show. Also, Hogwarts Legacy 2 is worked in conjunction with the TV show. And so that's not necessarily good either. And so it's like, are they going to change some subplots? Are they going to add some new characters? Is it going to be some kind of alternative whatever? I don't know. But again, it doesn't necessarily bode well for me. It doesn't work out most of the time. One good piece of hope that we do have is that Rowling, the creator of Hogwarts Legacy and Harry Potter, is that she still has to approve of stuff with the show. So she will, as long as she's alive, she will ever remain connected to Harry Potter and make sure that it's done as well as it can be, which is great. But again, it wasn't her choice to have the showrunner. That was chosen by somebody else. So in all, my worry is that we're focusing on making money first, and ultimately this will kill the IPs, like Star Wars, Marvel, and DC. People really don't care about those movies anymore. They don't care about the books. They can't sell the toys. Man, you should see some places, some stores that have toys and stuff. They are just stacked to the flippin' roof, man. It's insane. These were huge 3 kingpins. These were massive IPs. But their quality and design, it isn't making a profit anymore. The quality hasn't been maintained. Characters have been changed. Lore has been either left out, changed, or altered on purpose. And the only movie that really did well recently was Deadpool 3. And then, yeah, unfortunately, when you don't like the IP, you just quit caring. And that's kind of like how a lot of people feel right now about Call of Duty, Battlefield, or Halo. I mean, it's gotten bad enough for Halo anyway. The studio has had to basically restart, rename itself. They're going to get rid of the Slipspace engine. Continue to use it to support Halo Infinite for a time. But, eventually everything's going to go over to Unreal Engine 5. But it's like they've had to make some major changes with layoffs, too. It's amazing they haven't actually closed down because Infinite was such a mess. And it's better, which is good. But again, you keep messing up like this, like Dragon Age. You make another Dragon Age, people aren't going to buy the next one. It's the same issue with Mass Effect. Andromeda, you got to wait a really long time until you can actually make another Mass Effect game. Because Andromeda, again, was just such low quality compared to the other 3. So yeah, I think it's something that we need to be aware of and we need to be thinking about. And if it's okay to like these adaptations, it's okay to go see them. Like, that's not the issue. The issue is that with these bad adaptations, and luckily they're not all bad, they're not all blowing money on, like, Unknown 9. They're just killing the IP. That's the problem. And I think the worst thing for any piece of entertainment is just to simply be forgotten. And like, I don't want these things to fail. I don't even want a lot of these companies to fail. I want them to learn and listen and make money again by focusing on their majority of their consumer base. That's the wise thing. But will they do it? I don't know. Some of them are. Some of them haven't figured it out yet. So, yeah, pretty long-winded. Sorry about that. But, yeah, that I'm just worried about the multimedia model. Sony even came out and said this too. They want to find more IPs to be able to do this. They want to create more. And it's like, dude, you already have a ton of IPs you're not even using. They probably have the biggest graveyard of IPs ever for any company. I'm not even kidding. They have so many games they could reboot, they could make stories for, they could make toys, they could make podcasts. Yeah, but they don't use them, which is just crazy. And that doesn't bode well either for Sony. Because again, if Concord was supposed to be an amazing thing in their eyes, they are just absolutely blind to what their consumer base wants. And that's not good. And they better start figuring it out. All right, let's move on. Baldur's Gate 3. They actually added a huge patch. They're going to have a stress test in January if you actually want to be a part of that. This is actually all going to be free. This patch. We're getting 12 subclasses, a photo mode with all of the regular stuff we'd expect, plus poses, animations, different expressions, etc. Stickers. I mean, you can basically make whatever you want, which is pretty crazy. And it's almost kind of, the photo mode is kind of like a studio set or like a stage that you're able to make and manipulate and change stuff, which is really cool. So you can basically make the type of photos that you want more than any other photo mode I've ever heard of in a video game. They're also going to add cross-play between all the platforms. This is going to unify the player base. Reminds me too of like No Man's Sky. We've had like 13 updates now that have all been free, and like the game is completely different. And again, these are both companies that are putting the player first, and they're making flipping bank. They're making a ton of money. And it's great. We honestly need more of that, because when you focus on making your players happy, you're going to get sales today, and you're going to gain the trust to get sales tomorrow. And again, I wish companies would figure this out. Instead of withholding, they need to actually give, especially when people don't have as much money, when money's tight like it is right now. Those are the companies that are going to thrive and survive. Let's talk about some kind of disappointing news about some studios. Humanoid Origin, a studio started by a BioWare lead, Casey Hudson, is now shutting down. It was announced on LinkedIn this week due to a lack of financing. The game and IP is also gone. It's done. This was a sci-fi universe, likely a big budget AAA game. Looked exciting and interesting. They had some concept art, and they also had an alpha prototype, which we never got to see, of the game. But yeah, the studio had 72 employees, and Humanoid Origin is just no more, and the game's dead. And the IP is done. Like, it's probably never going back. It's not going to be sold to anybody, because again, it's not worth anything. So this whole project, for someone that helped create, that worked at BioWare and helped create stuff with Mass Effect and whatever, is, we're never going to see it. And that sucks, because we've actually had quite a few new studios crop up, and a lot of kind of middle-aged people in the middle of their career wanting to go out and start something new to make passion projects. We've actually seen that a lot the last couple of years. But also, too, the money's got to be there. That's tough. We've also had two Worlds Untold studio. They're having the same problem. This is an ex-Dragon Age production director, Also worked, again, with BioWare for quite some time. He left in 2023, but yeah, right now they're having to pause development on their game. The funding from NetEase has been pulled. And we don't exactly know why, but again, it's not their money, it's NetEase, and well, that partnership's over. And so the games, the universe, it's so big. Man, this was going to be something else if they could do it right, but it's so big that the worlds can't actually contain one story, which just sounds crazy. We'd be looking at multiple character plot lines. We'd probably be looking at several games, an entire lore and universe to explore and build and learn from. Both the studio CEO and NetEase said that they both decided to basically cancel the project. So maybe it was mutual. Not exactly sure what's going on because we don't have all the details, but ultimately there just wasn't enough money. And we know that NetEase has also closed some other studios too. You might remember that from last week's gaming news. And so, yeah, NetEase is kind of pulling back. They're feeling the financial pain. And you know, these leads, directors, unfortunately, they're finding out that it's hard out there in the gaming industry, and it's continuing to be. And it's a different ball game starting a studio and running a project. It reminds me too of Callisto Protocol with Crafton. Crafton wanted to make their numbers look good for getting bought by somebody or becoming an IP or a traded company. I think it was a traded company. And so they pushed Callisto Protocol too early, and the game sucked. Wasn't great. I gave it too high of a score when I reviewed it, honestly. But hey, I'm trying to do better. And yeah, Callisto Protocol was just a disappointment. And again, it was just kind of a meh. It's kind of a dead game within the first few months. And it's all Crafton's fault. And the guy that started Striking Distance to make Callisto Protocol, he quit. Like, he's never going back to the gaming industry, which I think is really sad because he made Dead Space. He thought of it. And, oh, man. Yeah. Some companies are just getting in the way. They need to let gaming be a hobby again, be a passion again, instead of just some corporate machine. It's disgusting. Let's talk about Black Friday. So, I was planning to actually do again Black Friday, but I thought it'd be a waste of your time. But Black Friday itself was interesting and frustrating this year. We had 4 weeks of sales. Each week, get a new ad. Hey, we're selling this stuff. We're doing this stuff. And so that it was constantly changing and rotating. Also hard to keep up with. Black Friday 2, the ads, the official Black Friday ads, they released less than 2 weeks before the event. Usually we get them toward the beginning of the month. But again, now that we have 4 weeks of Black Friday, don't forget Cyber Monday this week. Maybe even longer all the way to Christmas. Who flippin' knows at this point? But yeah, it was there really wasn't a lot of time, and I was still trying to plan my own vacation and stuff, and so yeah, there wasn't going to be enough time to actually talk about Black Friday, and I didn't feel like I could really do a better job anyway, because a lot of these Black Friday videos they were actually pretty short, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Okay, a side note in someone else's gaming news, like what I'm doing right now, just not really much there. A lot of the deals too weren't great overall. There was a lot of stuff that was 20% off, or $20 off, or $75 off, or $100 off. You know, there's actually no deals for Game Pass or PlayStation Plus that I could see, or even Nintendo, which was crazy. Usually we got to see that for quite a few years, but yeah, the last couple we haven't seen that. We even got raised prices at this point, and yeah, again, no discounts or deals. So they must be doing good. Otherwise, because yeah, you don't drop the price if you can sell it. There's also a lot of buy one get one free deals, or get two, or buy two get one. You know, that kind of thing. There weren't actual straight discounts, which again was kind of weird. I also saw a lot of tweaking of the prices. I guess not a ton, but like I got to see this on TVs and headsets and other miscellaneous gaming stuff, which was weird. And what I mean by tweaking the prices is that they had an actual MSRP price, and then the MSRP price was lowered literally the week of Black Friday. So, which again was weird. Now, the discount was the same. I'll use an example of the TV that I got. It's a $1,500 TV, except for the week of Black Friday, it went down to $1,200, but it was still on sale for $1,000. So, didn't change the price necessarily, but wasn't as good of a deal as I thought it was, because I wasn't even getting 20% off. I was getting more like 17%, which is still pretty good. But again, it's like, I'm not really saving that much. $200 today, not really that much money. A lot of the great deals were either higher end products, just kind of a bummer. So like the more expensive bundles for consoles, the premium edition of games, the fancier headsets, the bigger TVs. Okay, like they were literally marked down like 50% off or something like that. They were pretty cheap. Also, yeah, with the games too. Um, the great deals for the games were either games that launched poorly, weren't liked, or had already been out for a year plus. So that sucks. An example, Star Wars Outlaws. $70 game, you can get it for $40 instead. But again, nobody really wants that game. So yeah, it just wasn't great for the general masses for Black Friday. So my wife and I, we went out shopping and stuff, but there were no doorbusters. Excuse me, it's getting late, folks. There were no doorbusters. We also had guides, like holiday guides with no sales in them. What's even the point? Like I saw GameStop and another company put out a holiday guide. It's like, what the frick are you doing? You're just wasting my time. I don't even think GameStop even had a Black Friday ad this year. Going into the store is just, it didn't even feel like Black Friday. They had like a buy one, get one kind of a thing going on, but I didn't buy anything from GameStop. I think that's actually the first time ever. Kind of shocking that I haven't actually bought something from them on Black Friday. The best deals were actually on the console storefronts or on Steam, Epic Game Store. So yeah, Black Friday was just weird. And if maybe there's something you thought of buying but you didn't, hey, there's still an opportunity. Cyber Monday. Whatever they didn't sell, they're going to try to sell this week. Maybe even next week too. I wouldn't be surprised. So keep your ears open. And if there's something really interesting, I'll let you guys know. Let's keep on going. Payday 3 Studios, Starbreeze, had their CEO fired by the board. Payday 3 was a really bad launch. From what influencers played, wasn't what players got. There were bad server issues, glitches, bugs in the game, things didn't work right, or weren't even there at launch, maybe like they were supposed to be. Not to mention the having to log into a third party. So that stopped me right there. My little review is like 10 minutes of me ranting about having to log into the game. It's like, I'm already logged in. I'm old and grumpy and getting senile. I want it to be as easy as possible to play a game. And you're making me log in. Nope. I'm done. Sayonara, baby. And it really sounds like I didn't miss much. But Starbreeze did start something before the CEO was fired called Operation Medic Bag. It's honestly almost finished. It was a dedicated team to actually fix the bugs, which was great, but also expensive. That is their job, to actually just work on fixing all of the bugs in the game. Also, they're continuing to build the game's DLCs. There's free and paid stuff. There's also marketing for the game, which is also a pretty good chunk of money. But ultimately, they've lost their player base, with a lot of them going back to Payday 2. Taking a look at their earnings report from January through September of this year, Payday 3 revenue was $68 million, but Payday 2 was $32 million. Like, they still made tens of millions off of a game that's like 10 years old. Like, that's crazy to me. And their other game didn't really sell that well. We do know that Payday 3 is actually profitable now with the budget and the marketing. But again, they're still developing this game. They're still, they still had Operation Medic Bag to fix it, and that costs money. Good grief. I think to fix Cyberpunk 2077 was like $128 million, if I remember correctly. Tons of money. They also gave tens of millions of dollars back in refunds. So it's like, it's not cheap fixing a game. It's pretty expensive. And then you're still developing stuff on top of it. Now, there have been some studios like Halo Infinite where they've actually paused development or paused the DLC or the live service aspect and work on just fixing it first. But they didn't do that. They're like, look, we're going to fix the game while also continuing to make content for it. And so, yeah, that is a double whammy to the pocketbook. That has got to be pretty expensive. Profit loss margin is that they lost 150 million over these 9 months, and that's before taxes. So, yay. Earnings per share also dropped 10 cents. Now they're at 31 cents per share. So that's really bad. Their cash and equivalents is 249 million. So they still have a good chunk of money sitting there. But you can't keep losing $150 million in 9 months. That is bad. Yeah, you can't keep doing that. We also learned that year 2 content will ultimately be less money from the company. And the reason they're saying, while this is kind of a little concerning, they're saying it's because Operation Medic Bag is almost finished. So they're not going to have to work on paying for that like they did this year. Year 1, you can actually buy all of the DLC if you want for $25. Something that's interesting is that if you look on Steam, all of the DLC individually through the UI feature shows that it's basically $100. Well, you don't have to pay $100. You can actually just buy everything for $25. So poke around a little bit, make sure you're buying the right thing and not wasting your money or seeing that Starbreeze is greedy at this point. Because again, that's not what their intention is. They're allowing you to get everything for $25, which in my opinion is honestly really cheap. Because there's 4 heists, there's different guns, there's cosmetic packs. There's actually a lot of stuff there. If you do want to buy everything individually, you can do that. Or if you just want to buy it all for $25, you can do that too. But yeah, Steam should actually fix that because it's misrepresenting their third party that's helping them make money. And that's something they should honestly fix. Starbreeze is also working on another game, which some of us may not know. This is Project Baxter. We know that this is a D&D game. It's also going to be co-op, and it's an expected release in 2026 and 27. So now they're developing 2 games with having spent money on Operation Medic Bag and not a lot of sales. So they still might continue to lose money a little bit because, again, people just really seem fatigued. At least the players do anyway, where it's just the game needs to be good at launch. And if it's not, people are just done. They just walk away and they don't come back. And that's a tough lesson to learn. Hopefully they don't completely disappear. Hopefully they can keep on going. Again, they got a good chunk of money there, but now they're working on 2 games. So hopefully they're learning their lessons with Project Baxter. Just like what Ubisoft says they are, the game has to be good at launch. That is what is necessary. And if that's not the case, companies aren't going to be around to see the next project. Or at least some of the devs won't. Man, we've had so many layoffs this year. It's crazy. All right, let's take a look at Sony. This is actually kind of hilarious. Looks like Sony has a third-party copy of Horizon out there. You look at the cover art, even though it's by somebody else, it literally looks like Horizon. Same color palette, girl standing there next to a robot. It kind of looks like a dinosaur or whatever, a baby dinosaur. The girl's got red hair. I mean, it's just hilarious. So this is called Light of Mortirum. I hope I'm saying that right. It's an open world survival game that looks very close cosmetically to Horizon with kind of the same overall arching story, but it plays like Pal World. Except with pals, instead of pals, you have robot dinos. Basically what you have. The studio is Polaris Quest and owned by Tencent. So this is, again, Tencent's project. They've greenlit the whole thing. And this is honestly the biggest company probably in gaming right now. They have, as some of you probably know, Tencent has their hands in just about everybody that's in gaming. Maybe they don't run the companies, but again, they have a pretty big share or stakehold on the actual company itself. So when the companies make money, they make money by just investing. and they love doing that. I'm not sure if Sony actually has a case either to make a call or a claim to say like, hey, you're basically copying our stuff, or if they would want to. Sony already has been losing some money. They've also spent a bunch of it, and they're currently also is in talks with Kadokawa. Basically, we're learning that it's $4 billion to buy Kadokawa right now, and that's more than what they paid for Bungie. I don't know if they want to spend over $4 billion right now. And it kind of sounds like they want to buy pieces of it, but Kadokawa's like, nope, you got to buy the entire thing or nothing at all. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Kadokawa, by the way, also has From Software. So there goes Elden Ring. God, I hope not. I hope it would be a really good thing for Elden Ring, actually. But again, with how Sony has managed things recently, though Ryan isn't there at the company anymore, Sony just hasn't had a good reputation the last couple of years again because of Ryan. But again, he's not there. Hopefully they're turning things around. That's the plan. And hopefully that's what's happening. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting that Tencent is basically copying Horizon and Pal World. And it's just like, good gravy, man. And it's an interesting idea, too, that there's really not a lot of like unique ideas anymore. Everything has pretty much been done at this point. So then what do you do? I don't know. It's an interesting question. We also found out this week that the Xbox app for Android to be on the Google Play Store has been blocked by the United States courts. Someone has asked for a stay on the release of the app, and the U.S. courts granted that. So the idea is that through the app, you're able to buy games, and then you're able to play those games through the app outside of Game Pass and just stream it straight to your device, whatever you're using. Xbox honestly wasn't expecting this as they just started their ad campaign. You know, everything's in Xbox. They were planning to release all of this. They've also been adding games to their streaming list outside of Game Pass, which is great. They've been adding roughly 5 to 10 games every month so far. And we do know that this stay is temporary, but we don't know who asked yet for the stay. So someone's worried. Maybe the competition is really kind of heating up, and Xbox is really swinging the bat pretty hard. Maybe some of us don't realize how hard they're swinging, but maybe their competition does. And so maybe that's why the release of the Xbox app is delayed. Because, yeah, just being able to buy games and stream them straight to you without having to have a subscription service, that's crazy. And Xbox wants to do the entire store, not just Game Pass. So Sarah Bond says that currently everything is ready. They just need to be able to get the go-ahead to launch it. So, yeah, we'll keep you up to date on that. Some interesting things. Elon Musk is saying that he wants to launch an AI game studio, according to him, on Twitter X. The studio, he said, would be under XAI. Says currently there's too many studios that are under big companies, but I find this pretty hilarious because isn't X like $40 billion? It's a big mother hubbing company. Okay, EA is like $10 billion. Excuse me. Ubisoft is like 3 or 4 billion. So yeah, X is pretty dang big by those standards. I just find that pretty ironic. We have also seen some experiments where AI has actually made some games or implemented some stuff in games or streamed it to you, created it in real time at 20 frames per second. But I'm not really sure if this is profitable because, again, it's like it's not perfect. It's not like these are great. I do think in the future maybe it will be, but there is still a ton of learning there that needs to be done. And we don't have any current details other than what Elon Musk has stated, but maybe making mobile games first. Honestly, I'd rather have people making my games. Okay. I'm a person. They're a people. And they make good stuff. They can. AI can be useful as a tool, but they're not great at making a game. They're not even great at making art yet. They are definitely getting better. So maybe they'll replace people at some point. They already kind of are since 2022. But yeah, an entire AI studio that's That's kind of weird. Let's talk about Tencent. This is huge. They've actually partnered with Intel, and they're launching the 3D One. This is a handheld that uses 3D imaging technology. The 3DS also had this tech, but will it be better on the 3D One? We don't know. Some of the specs we do know about this handheld is that it has an 11-inch screen. At 2K, it has detachable controls, just like the Switch currently does. There's currently no price or release date for this device. We do already. This is actually after Xbox and Sony have said that they're also making a handheld. So now Tencent is coming out and saying that they're making one, and we actually have pictures of this device, which is pretty crazy. And then we still don't even know what the Switch 2 is going to be. So, yeah, the market for handhelds are really heating up and getting competitive, and generally that's a good thing for us consumers. Yeah, we're kind of now having a handheld war, if you could call it that way. You know, it's getting pretty competitive, but we're getting something between a phone and a console, which I think is interesting. The idea to still play natively or stream, maybe. So it kind of depends on how each company does their thing. Again, as they release these, we'll be able to get more specs on it. But the 3D One is going to have 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM. Think of that. 32 gigs. My laptop I'm using right now to stream this has 16. And this is smaller than my keyboard on my laptop. This is crazy. Or maybe roughly the same size. The SSD for storage is going to be up to 1 terabyte. The screen is going to be 2K at 120 hertz. The battery is going to be 100 watts. That's as much as my new TV. That is crazy. We don't have an MAH spec yet, which is really important on how big the charge can actually be. But, yeah, this is going to be interesting. So, yeah, now Tencent is making one. So we have the ROG Ally, Steam Deck, Xbox and Sony making one, and now Tencent. And then technically Nintendo, too. Yeah, this is really getting interesting, I think. And some other news, real quickly. The PS Portal is now going black. Scalpers are, of course, going to come in again. They should really just work on selling the shell, because the black is going to be in limited quantities. So, yeah, those scalpers are going to come in. We already know what's going to happen, and just that'll make headlines for a week, and it's stupid. Why does Sony do this? It's really pretty ridiculous. Again, it's not very consumer friendly. And scalpers are getting screwed right now on the Pro. You know, they got screwed on the Portal. They got screwed on PSVR. I hope they get screwed some more. I think it'd be great. Last piece of news here before we talk about games coming in December. Shushi is leaving PlayStation. I hope I said that correctly. He was the president at PlayStation since the beginning of PlayStation 1. Again, this is December of 94. That is pretty incredible. He was the president until 2019. Then Ryan stepped in, and we know that whole live service disaster. So luckily Ryan's out of there. And golly, I hope he never is in the gaming industry again. He honestly needs to quit and stay out of it. But Shuhei says that he's actually not retiring, but he didn't really elaborate more than that, but he wants to stay into the gaming industry. He wants to stay connected. And so that's actually, that's pretty interesting. Oh no, I got plenty left. Perfect. Yeah, but honestly, what a legend. I mean, he's helped create these IPs that I grew up with. He's helped create the foundation for what PlayStation is from scratch. It is also one of the first 3D consoles. It was the first 3D console, which is pretty incredible. And their main competitor back then was the N64. But yeah, I remember playing the PlayStation and just having a good time with it. All of the games, new experiences. it's sad to see him go. And honestly, I think he was the last one. So every position now is completely shifted and rotated around now to somebody else, the second or third generation, if you will. And yeah, ultimately they're not doing a great job. They need they need to get their boat turned around, man. Yeah, hopefully they can do that. All right, games coming in December. Last thing, folks. Golly, this has been going on forever. Don't you like how long these are? I don't all the time, but hey, that's okay. I do it for you guys. First, we're getting Warhammer Darktide actually on the PlayStation 5. This is going to be on the 3rd of December. Marvel Rivals is coming on the 6th. Shadow Tactics Blades of the Shogun is on the 6th as well. Indiana Jones on the 9th. Springtime for PlayStation 5. We're also getting the Legacy of Kain 1 and 2 remaster. That's on the 10th. We're getting Besieged on Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4 and 5 on the 12th. Kingmakers. I actually really want to play this game. It looks really fun. I don't know if you guys remember the trailer, but one person running around with an AK basically, shooting into a crowd of knights and polemen and stuff in like the medieval times. Dude, it looked like a blast. Driving a massive truck through just loads and loads of soldiers from like 1410. And being able to change history and stuff. I mean, yeah, I love that kind of alternative history. Yeah, Kingmakers honestly looks really fun. It is supposed to come out this month, but we currently don't have a release date, which is weird. Also, Path of the Exile beta is coming. You have to have $30 to basically buy in and play that, but definitely some people are going to be doing that. And Path of the Exile honestly looks really, really great. Again, they're putting their players first, and they're doing better than Diablo. So, come on, Microsoft. You need to get together with the program here and put your players first. Also, we're going to have the Delta Force beta, and it's going to be free for a little bit. I am going to do my best to actually try to play that and show it to you guys. And I'm actually excited about Delta Force. Oh, it's another, simple, like, first-person shooter. And I got to disagree with that because a lot of the first-person shooters that we have today are more arcadey, and they're not realistic. They're not taken seriously. I mean, you can be a shark head and a cat and whatever else, right, in Call of Duty. Medal of Honor we don't even have anymore, unfortunately. It couldn't compete with COD, and now COD just has the market, so they can do whatever the frick they want. And then Battlefield, to stay, quote, competitive, has now also followed Call of Duty. So, again, Battlefield 2042 5 wasn't great, but it was a heck of a lot better than 2042. And then the CEO basically making Battlefield the next Battlefield is like, yeah, this is going to be a wonderful live service. Ugh. Yeah. The only other thing we really have is like Arma. But most people don't even know what that is. At one point, we also had Rainbow Six. That was taken more seriously, but now we have a whole bunch of operators. It's been like 15 years of live service, whatever, and yeah. Oh no, 10. Excuse me, 10 years. But it is what it is. But I would actually love to see a serious first-person shooter again. Like Black, okay? Like GoldenEye. Something. I mean, give me something. I miss that kind of stuff. Doom, okay? Give me something. At least we still have Doom, I guess. But yeah, as for a modern-day military shooter, we don't really have anything. It's all kind of a joke. Tactics don't matter. Really no challenge in it. Just a grind, mindless fest of death. Yeah. So yeah, Delta Force, that's coming also this month. Actually, next week, before Indiana Jones. So yeah, I'm going to be busy in December. I'm going to have Indiana Jones, Delta Force, and then I want to play Kingmakers, which looks awesome. Yeah, I'm excited. So anyway, I'm going to end it right there, folks. Thank you guys for listening this long. I know these are getting incredibly long sometimes, but hey, we just got a lot of news coming and got a lot of stuff happening in the industry, and I think it's important to keep up with it. For those of you that like this content being this long, please like and sub. It just tells the algos real quickly that this is good content, that it should go out to more people, and ultimately you are the ones promoting the channel. I'm creating the content, and then you guys promote it if you enjoy it. If you don't, or there's some critiques, I'd actually like to hear those. Go ahead and leave it down in the comments. I'm always looking for feedback every so often on how I can improve my channel and make it better. But also, too, if you enjoy gaming news, maybe you'll enjoy some of the playthroughs that I'm doing. I do a single-player one, which is Tomb Raider 3 right now, the remaster, and then also Lion and I, a buddy of mine, we're going through the quarry after Shadow of the Erdtree. But yeah, you guys actually voted for the next co-op, and that is going to be Halo 1 on like flipping legendary. So, oh man, that is going to be a brutal campaign. Yeah, that is going to be insane. It's gonna make Lion go insane, I think. But hey, I'm gonna try to hold them together as long as we can, and yeah, we'll be starting that next year in January. So, yeah, we also have States of Gaming as well. These are like deeper dives into something in the gaming industry that I think is important to talk about. And the States of Gaming, they don't come out as often, but it's really only just for when there's really something interesting, really something worth talking about. Because again, I don't really want to waste your guys' time. And hey, if you like some of the things on the channel and not others, that is totally okay. But hey, if you enjoy it, like, sub, and also share the content. With that, folks, I'll see you guys on the next one.